today on the Prosperity Nation podcast.
There's often a lot of research that goes into these questions. Like preparation is just getting the documents and typing them in, but the planning is answering all these questions, doing the research that's needed to actually properly advise them, which can take hours upon hours depending on their question.
Welcome to the Prosperity Nation podcast, the show where we inspire you to live a life you love without money holding you back. I'm Angie Grainger, and this is my co-host, Elise Eropkin.
Hey, Angie.
Hey, Elise. What's on the agenda for the show today?
Oh, well, today, we're going to talk about the difference between tax planning and tax preparation.
Man, you mean they're not the same thing?
No.
I guess that's going to be the show,
Yeah,
right?
we'll find out, won't we?
Well, before we get into it, we always do like to remind everybody what our definition of prosperity means, which is flourishing as a person as well as flourishing financially. And it's super important to us as a CPA-led wealth management firm that we touch on that personal side, that human side of wealth, besides all the technical stuff. And since it's going to be a technical show here, when we're talking about tax planning, tax strategy, tax advice versus tax preparation, I don't want anybody to get overwhelmed, including me. So, Elise, what made you want to talk about this today?
Well, I think it's because I don't think a lot of people realize there's a difference, first of all.
What makes you realize that? Or what makes you think they don't know that?
I think it's because of the amount of people we get saying, like, my CPA doesn't help me. Mm-hmm. My CPA doesn't answer my questions. I don't have calls with CPAs to go over my planning. And it's like, okay, well, what do you actually have them do for you? And go file my taxes.
Right.
So you're like, okay, well, so you expect all the other stuff for free? I don't know.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a client that we had, not for a very long time, thank goodness. No, I don't want to say it like that because I love every client and every person, but they're not always a fit. But you know what it's like when someone comes in and they just pelt you with questions? and then they are like, no, I don't need any advice. I don't need to go into your advice program. I don't want to pay, like a monthly fee for that. But can I just ask you one quick question? And it's always just, but one quick question. And it just opens that door. And I think that what I find is that people are just starving for good quality tax advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that actually is funny because that actually is true. I think most people don't think they have questions except for one.
Right.
Well, but it's like it reminds me of the clown trick where he's pulling the scarf out of his mouth or throat, whatever, and it's like you see one color and then the next you think it's gonna end, and then there's another and another and another and another. It's like it's one scarf, it's one question.
Yeah, it's
just never ending.
But the tricky part is how do you answer that question?
Yeah.
Because I know that when I get asked a question and someone says, it's just a real quick question. Mm-hmm. Should I set up an LLC or should I set up an S Corp? And it's like, I don't know anything about the situation. Right. I have no idea how much money they're making or whether they should or they shouldn't. And I know if I try to explain anything, they're not going to understand it, or it's going to open up so many more questions. And it's this delicate dance of I don't want someone to be left there in this mystery with this unanswered question, but they don't know yet that the question is the wrong time to be asking the question. And so I can't really answer it without opening a can of worms.
Right. Yeah. And I think you brought up a good point too, because there's often a lot of research that goes into these questions.
Right.
Like you said, if they're asking an LLC, an S Corp, C Corp, whatever, you don't know anything at that point unless they've been a client of ours for quite some time, what the background is, what the situation is. So you can't really properly advise without knowing that. And then you need to do the research, which obviously takes time. So I think going back to the original planning versus preparation, it's like preparation is just getting the documents and typing them in. But the planning is answering all these questions, doing the research that's needed to actually properly advise them, which can take hours upon hours, depending on their question.
Yeah. I've been really making a distinction lately between tax preparation and tax advice. I mean, I've been really calling that out because for tax preparation, you can go do it yourself. It's a commodity.
It's true. Yeah.
Go to Intuit or TurboTax or the IRS H&R Block. Like, go get a tax return done. And even a lot of CPAs, a lot of CPAs don't do tax planning. They do tax returns during tax season. They go on vacation all summer long. They come back and finish them up after the extensions and go on break over the holidays and do it again. And they're not tax strategists or tax planners. They are just tax preparers. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why I think I used to get upset of well, gosh, there's not enough CPAs in the world to help with everybody's, questions and getting good advice. And people are looking at it on AI and Google to get all this tax advice or from their friends. And then they complain because, like you said, the CPA isn't available and hasn't been proactive with them.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason for that. Besides the fact that they may not be paying for it, but also the shortage, if it gets, buried in tax compliance, is you just don't have time. Yeah. But the key is helping people understand that there is a difference in that, and that just because you're doing a tax return, why should you also be expecting advice, but you're paying for the commodity, I kind of hate to be bringing that up because I don't like to take that position, but it's true. It's just true. Like, here's your tax return versus let me go over the tax return with you. Let me explain it to you. Let me show you how I think you could be saving money. Let me, work with you throughout the year to make sure you have no surprises all year long and we're making these adjustments before it's too late. That's not a free service. That's a very time-consuming effort on our part. And we went to school for 10 years to learn all this stuff and be able to do it well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, you go, I don't know, if you have an illness, it's like you go to the doctor to handle that illness, right? And they give you their medication and you get better. That would be like the equivalent of the tax preparation. The one time, get it done. Mm-hmm. But then in order to stay healthy, you need to do routine checkups and you need to keep going back to the doctor. But that one visit that you originally went to only covers the one visit. It doesn't cover all of the routine checkups and the blood work and the labs and the follow-ups. And so I guess that's in my head, that's kind of a way to look at it. Like, the tax prep is just the one-time thing that handles that immediate need. But then if you want the other services, the proper planning and all that, it does take a lot of work. And it sucks, I guess, just because I like to help people, and I know you do too, that is an extra fee, but just the amount of hours alone to do all the research, make sure you're pulling the right tax codes to give proper advice, getting the right documents, reading the legal documents from the client, whatever, that takes a lot of time.
That reminds me, too, that includes tax notices.
Oh, yeah.
Tax notices, they come randomly. And the IRS and the franchise tax boards and stuff, they make mistakes and they send out wrong notices or they cancel your account for some weird reason or something. Yeah. And it's very upsetting. It's upsetting to the person who receives the letter. And then they're upset, and so they don't know what to do. And so we want to help them. And, the first step is to read the letter and follow the instructions. But, it's hard to do sometimes. I get that. But to call the IRS to find out what's going on, we could be sitting on hold for hours to do that. Yeah. Now, at our billing rates, nobody wants to pay that much, thousands of dollars to sit on hold or whatever it is to find out what to do and get those instructions. But then again, should we do that for free for you? It's not included in the price of doing a tax return. That's just a tax return, Mm-hmm. And so it's that same deal. It's the same expectation of what are you going to the CPA for, and what are you actually expecting that CPA to do for you, and how much are you wanting to pay for that service? And finding a good CPA or a good tax preparer is look, I don't want to spend money on advice, then just get the tax return prepared, and that's fine. But if you don't get the advice or you have problems, just know that was a choice that was made, right? It's not an obligation that anybody who prepares your tax return has to give you advice.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I remember when you first brought this up to me, I was like my mind blew because I think that it's just this idea that just because someone files your taxes, it's like, I don't know. And when you even told me it, I'm like, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I didn't even think of that before, but just because someone files your taxes, it's almost like you feel obligated for them to pick up the phone anytime that you have a question. And when you brought that up to me, I'm like, yeah, that's so messed up. Like, they're not charging enough. And I mean, I'm counting like when I got mine done by someone else, like they're not charging enough for it to be just like an on-call CPA. Yeah. So, but I don't know why I never actually thought of it that way. Yeah. It was such like a mind-blown moment for me.
Yeah. And, think about most CPAs. I mean, this is what we have to experience, especially in summertime when those notices start coming out or whatever, somebody's trying to buy a house or whatnot and they can't reach the CPA. Yeah. I mean, it's a problem because at the bottom line is that, we have to have a system set up to be able to answer those questions. And for us, that's how we're solving the problem for our clients and for our firm because we want to be available. And we know you're going to have questions later. We know things are going to come up. And we don't want to bill you for 0.1 of an hour for every 6 minutes that we talk to you. We don't want to do that. And so that's why we kind of set it up differently to be available, but also to know that you've got that advice when you need that advice ready for you, Yeah,
I don't want to bill someone for like reading an email.
Right, exactly, or a tax notice.
Yeah, so. It doesn't feel right.
Exactly. So I guess what would you advise? I mean, if a new client came in, or if your friend was asking you these questions, what would you advise them? What would you tell them to do when they're looking for a new preparer?
Well, I guess I would try to see what they want. Kind of like you said, do you just want your tax return and don't care about any questions? Or do you actually have questions or have future things buying a home or something down the line that you're going to need to get your stuff in order for, Or do you just literally want someone to type in the numbers for you? And I think that would probably be the first step is just see what they actually need and want from
It's
someone.
Kind of funny though, but because it's taxes, nobody wants to pay for that. Nobody wants to pay to have their tax return.
Because they don't want to pay their taxes. I know.
Exactly.
Most people don't agree with paying the taxes anyway, so they don't want to pay someone to do something that they don't even want to do themselves.
Exactly. And I feel for them. None of us want that.
No, I don't want to pay taxes either.
Yeah, and I don't want to pay to have anybody prepare my tax return, and I don't want to pay anybody to give me advice either.
Something that you don't even want advice for because you don't want to pay.
At least we're sitting. When I'm hearing myself say that, I'm like, what are we doing? We should quit.
Yeah, but okay, come on. We didn't get into this. You didn't decide to be a CPA. I didn't decide to do all this work to become a CPA just to prepare taxes.
Right.
So, okay, fine. We're
actually
we're trying to help people not pay the taxes they shouldn't have to pay. At the end of the day, we're not I want to become millionaires by just making people pay me a bunch of money so I can make them pay a bunch of money. No, we're trying to help them. But I'd like to hear the story.
I have two stories, actually.
Okay.
Now that we're talking about, a couple of years ago, I was looking to buy a CPA firm or a tax practice firm. And I went discovered this one. I think it was an enrolled agent. And he very quickly had grown this business up to multiple six figures. And I was like, well, how is he doing this? High volume like this. He had this whole marketing system. And then it was 30% of his revenue was on audits, tax audits. And I was like, oh my God, we never do tax audits. We don't ever need to because we just do quality work. Well, that's where I found out the high volume was a lot of errors, estimates on things, got people refunds, and then made money on doing the audits afterwards. And I didn't know that at first, but he rejected my offer because I was a CPA. He didn't want to sell it to a CPA because our standards are really high. Shady. It was so shady. But my other story was when I graduated with my first degree in tax and accounting when I was 19 from the junior college. And I took my first tax class at that time. And I hated it so bad. I was crying on the kitchen table trying to do my homework. And I just remember, like, I will never, ever freaking do taxes. This sucks. I'm never doing this. And, back then it was like you had to do all the paper forms. And this page A goes to page B to page C to form X. And, lines 16 to 18. Oh, my God. It was so hard. And even further classes I ended up taking. I don't know. I said I hated doing taxes and I never do it. And then I ended up getting a master's degree in tax and being a manager in a big corporate firm. And I'm like, and I'm owning a CPA firm now for the fourth time.
What are you doing with your life?
That's going to go into our next podcast, which is why didn't you live the life you loved all these years?
But obviously there's a reason you did it and you're still doing it. So what's that one?
Oh my God.
Because you wouldn't still be doing all of this and create the tax firm, or the CPA firm, if like you were that opposed to doing something.
Well, the truth is that that's how I make money. Now that goes against all of.
You also like other things.
I know, but look, it goes against our advice, right? Because it's like you don't build something to make money.
To make money. Mm-hmm.
But you do something because it's something you love. So to me, it's like it is the path that allows me to do both, because people need their taxes done, and I am very good at it. Whether I like it or not is irrelevant. But I always turn those conversations over into something I personally do love to talk about and I do care about, which is, hey, what's going on with you as a person? Like, let's get you unstressed about this. Mm-hmm. It's like money ministry, It's not just planning. It's like being their counselor and their coach. Right. And that's what I really love. And so, yes, if taxes are there and I can make money and it gets started on a firm, fine. Everybody needs that. But I'll never be satisfied unless I can also have those conversations that de-stress people, end the suffering over this taxes and money stuff, and get people actually in control of their money. That's what I care about.
Yeah, I think that in this sense, it's like you don't want just to do tax preparation.
Right.
You want to do the tax, you don't really want to do the tax preparation, but you notice you have to do the tax prep in order to do the planning and all the other things to help people achieve their goals and dreams.
It's true. And, I do end up liking tax. What I do like about tax prep, I don't like doing taxes, but what I do like about it.
Because I do them now, so you should love them.
I know. You run all that, thank God. But what I do love is how much money we find and how many mistakes we fix and how much better people's experiences are and how much money we save them with strategy. Like, that feels really good to help people in that way. So, I like to help people. I don't like to put numbers on tax return, but if I can find a way to do both, well, great.
I think you did.
We're well on our way to something great here. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, we should probably wrap up because now, we are going to have to pick that topic up on our next episode, which is like, wait a minute, what if you don't do what you love to do in life? What are you going to do about it? And I think we should pick that up on our next episode.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
Well, we would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your stories, what's on your mind. So how can we do that, Elise?
Well, first they should follow us or subscribe to our podcasts on any platform they're watching it on or listening to. They can also email us at stories@prosperitynation.com and give us feedback. Tell us how they realized that tax planning and tax prep is different. Now, whatever, we'd love to hear your comments or feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else.
Perfect. Well, we'll see you on the next episode. That's all for now.
All right.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. Like and subscribe to videos from us on YouTube. Follow us online for the latest episodes, updates, and more. And invite others to join us at prosperitynation.com. That's it for now. We'll see you next time on the Prosperity Nation podcast.